What's up, Jedis, clone troopers, and Wookiees? Welcome back to the Fantasy Files podcast, where we talk about our favorite nerdy books, series, and topics. We are your co-hosts, Spencer and Gabe, joined once again by my friend Isaac to talk about the second book in the Thrawn Trilogy, Dark Force Rising by Timothy Zahn. We'll be getting into full spoilers right away for this one, since it's the second book in the series. So just be forewarned as we go into this episode. If you'd like to reach out to us, we have our Twitter, Discord, and Patreon, all linked down below in the description. And the last of which you can get exclusive content on for just $3 a month, with more fun stuff coming soon to that platform. If you like what you see here on YouTube, do us a favor and like and subscribe. It really helps us with the algorithm, and it helps more people like you find our little community. If you're watching this before February 25th, then keep an eye out for our 100th episode live stream, which should be starting around 11 a.m. PST, Puget Standard Time. And we'll be going for about 5 hours. We'll be having a ton of guests joining us throughout the stream, and we'll be playing a ton of games and whatnot. So please join us if that sounds like fun. And if you're watching this after the 25th, but want to see the live stream, then just click over to the live tab on our channel homepage, and you can see the final recorded live stream. So hope you guys enjoy that, and I hope you guys enjoy this episode. We're going to get right into it with some general thoughts on this book, but I wanted to read some recent comments that we got. We got some comments on the last Thrawn video we did, which are very funny. And then we got just kind of a nice comment that somebody posted recently that I really appreciated. So this is from our episode with Adam Gold. We had an audiobook narrator on, and he's very, awesome, very skilled at what he does. Yeah, excellent. It's honestly probably one of my favorite interviews that we've done. Just because he's such a nice guy and he's so cool to talk to. Wow. And he was just a really cool dude.
That's awesome.
So we got a comment from this guy, Clever Cats Livona. It says, great interview. I just discovered Adam Gold's amazing narrations of Susan May Warren's audiobook series, The Minnesota Marshals. After listening to your podcast, I appreciate even more how much Adam puts his heart and soul into voice acting the characters. When a narrator pulls me into a book with full emotions and wide range of voices, making the characters come alive as Adam does, I will look for their work with other authors. Adam, keep up the great acting.
Nice.
I posted that on social media, and I tagged Adam in it, and he responded. He's like, you have no idea, this just made my day. But yeah, I love getting comments like this, and I love people reaching out and saying like, hey, whether it's I just really liked this episode, or even if they didn't like the episode, or if they have something to say about our guest that is positive, that's always a good day for me. And I love hearing from people when they have those kind of comments. We also got some comments on our Thrawn video. And can you see what this guy's name is? I can't see it from here.
Ithra Munch Swallows. Swallow? Ithra Munch Swallow? I don't know. That sounds naughty.
I know.
Yeah, it does.
Ithra Munch Swallow. That sounds like Mad Gab, where it's supposed to sound like a word.
Yeah. He left about 17 comments on our Thrawn video.
Nice.
I went to go check them this morning, and I saw 17. I'm like, oh wow, a lot of people commented. Nope, it's all from one guy. And so he says, I can imagine this series would be tough after watching Last Jedi. I read these before Phantom Menace. And then he says, Shadows of the Empire and Splinter of the Mind's Eye are my favorite Star Wars books. So I was going to ask you if you had heard, is one of those the third book in the Thrawn trilogy?
Do you know? I don't remember. I think those are different books.
Okay.
I have not read either of those. I've heard of Shadows of the Empire, but I haven't.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say that kind of rings a bell. But I definitely hadn't heard of Splinter of the Mind's Eye. So we'll have to check those out.
I'm still relatively new to the Star
the
Wars book
books.
reading.
Sure.
I'm on my way, making my way. That's why I'm here.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, he makes an interesting point. He says, this is a completely different comment. So many people were thinking that Rey was the twin or the daughter of Mara Jade, and Luke. That's a disappointment.
That is a disappointment.
I'm like, I never thought about that. That'd be super cool.
I think she could have been so many different people instead
other
of
than
who
what
she
she
ended up
was.
being, and it would have been way more satisfying.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. I thought she should have been like Han and Leia's son, because another like Star Wars Legends, Han and Leia have multiple kids, and it's just like they limited it. Just they had one kid. Come on, I
Yeah.
don't know. That bothered me.
Yeah. That kind of sucked. And especially even in the books we're reading, they have twins.
Right.
And so it's like, yeah. But I think there was like a fan theory for a while when those movies were coming out that Rey was Kylo Ren's sister,
Yeah.
and that she was going to be like their daughter or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of for what they did, I'm glad they didn't go that way, because Rey and Kylo end up like kind of having a thing. But also, I wish that Rey and Kylo didn't have a thing.
I
Like,
wish
that
they
was
didn't
just
have a thing
weird.
Rey should have. She shouldn't have had a thing with anybody. She should have joined the dark side.
Oh,
Kylo should have swapped and become a good guy, and then in the end they can both be good guys or whatever.
right.
But I don't know. So much missed opportunity to do some cool stuff. That's a whole nother.
That's a whole
That's a whole
tangent.
nother conversation in itself.
And then one of the 17 comments that this guy says is, maybe find a girlfriend that likes camping.
Oh man.
And I'll be honest, I don't know what this is in reference to.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I cannot remember what we might have said that would prompt that. And yeah, I see commenters doing this a lot, where they'll do they'll like watch the episode and they'll comment along the way. And just so you guys know, as viewers, I don't get a timestamp. Like, I don't get like it doesn't tell me when you put that comment at what point in the video. So if you want to reply to a specific thing we say, I would appreciate, just put in like a timestamp, like 43 minutes or 43:15 or whatever it is. Because otherwise I don't usually remember the entire episode. But I thought that was very funny. That's because funny. I'm the only single guy here, and I don't like camping. So he must be talking either to me or like about a character in the book or something. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know what I could have possibly said that would prompt that, but it was very funny. All right, so as we get into some of our general thoughts, you did the audiobook this time around, right? And I think the last time you just read the paperback. So what did you think of the audio?
It was awesome, and I cruised through it. It was I actually went through the book twice.
Yeah, it was now you understand why we do audio.
It was cool. And you were talking about how you listened to it on faster speeds. I listened through it the first time on just the one just the normal speed,
right? But
then when I went back through, I listened to it like faster and faster, and I was like, oh, I could see how you could just start cruising through books. Yeah, it was cool. It's so super immersive. I did get I had patience with the Nogri when they talked. They were like,
oh yeah,
just garbly speech.
Yeah,
that was like, sometimes it was like, all right, and your monologue, like
you've had enough words.
But yeah.
What'd you think of like the there was like sound effects and songs, and do you like all that stuff?
That was awesome.
Yeah,
that was cool. It's cool, and it raises my expectation for an audiobook, I think, because when I listen to something else and it's just a person talking, like, what is this?
Yeah.
Even like the scene changes, or like the beginning of a chapter, it'll have that sound effect, like in the movie when it switches scenes. It's like zoom or whatever, and like the scene changes.
And that guy goes, chapter 7.
Right.
Yeah.
There's something about that. It's just like,
it's just satisfying. Yeah. Oh, That's cool. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed the audiobook.
it's cool.
And yeah, that's like how we're able to do the podcast, like a book a week is just like running through audiobooks on super speed.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm subscribed to Audible now, which is a new subscription.
We made a believer out of you.
Yeah.
And I downloaded the next book, and
cool.
then I have 2 more credits sitting there waiting for me to pick.
Yep.
I don't know. I'm thinking
cool.
probably another Star Wars book, but
yeah, maybe check out Shadows of Empire or whatever.
Which I remembered what that was.
Oh,
Shadows
really?
of the Empire was like this series that they tried to push. I think it came between Empire Strikes Back and the last movie. They were trying to like, it's like a series. It was like multimedia. I think they had like action figures and comics and books and like, they were really trying to push something. And like if I'm remembering that right. I think I'm remembering that right. But it's interesting. There's this green alien guy that uses pheromones to control women.
Okay.
It's
yeah. There you go.
It's interesting.
That was the turn I wasn't expecting. But okay, yeah. So does it follow like Jedi, or is it? Do you remember?
So I can't remember exactly the adventure that happens, or so it's literally in between, Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So at this time, Han Solo is frozen in carbonite at Jabba's palace, and I think the whole idea was they wanted to kind of explore this like grayish area in the universe.
Okay.
But yeah, that's all I remember.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Cool.
Maybe that is the next book. Who knows?
All right. Well, Gabe, you and we read this probably a month ago, and I realized on this read through, because I was like, no, I haven't read this yet. I'm like, it's just been sitting in my library for like a month or so. And then as I started reading it, I was like, oh, I remember this.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely read this. And then even halfway through the book, I was like, yeah, but I didn't read the whole thing. Like I read it part way, and then we like postponed the podcast, and so I stopped. And then even as I got to the end of the book, I was like, no, I remember this.
Yeah.
So I must have finished the whole thing before.
Yep. I did as well. That's why when you were telling me like we're read the next book in the Thrawn trilogy, I was
You're
looking
thinking
for
3.
Yeah, because I was like, I'm pretty sure I read 2, and sure enough, I had this, same thing. I remembered most of the scenes and stuff.
Yeah.
Did you start reading the 3rd one?
No.
Oh, okay.
I've not.
Yeah, we were like, it was like maybe Wednesday or something, and we knew this wasn't a very long book, so we could knock it out in a couple days or whatever. And so I was like texting him. I'm like, hey, how's the Thrawn trilogy going for you? And he's like, it's not in your library. It's not in either of our libraries. It's like, we're gonna have to like get a credit and buy it. And I was like, what do you mean? It's been in my library for like a month. He's like, no, it's not in there. As we were like going back and forth. And I was like, I sent him a picture of I'm like, dude, it's right here. And he's like, oh, I've already read this one. I thought we were talking about the 3rd one. So that's kind of how we got there. Yeah. But with all that said, how so doing 2 read throughs now, how did you like the book?
Oh, I like it a lot, man.
Yeah.
I compared to the first, I should have, if I would have had more time, I would have read the first one again as well.
Same. Yeah.
To see the stack up. But no, I like this book a lot. There's a lot of movement, a lot of players, a lot of kind of cool conclusions.
Yeah.
So yeah, I enjoyed the whole thing.
Yeah, I think like it wasn't as action packed as the first one. I felt like it moved so tell me if this makes sense. It moved slower, but not at a slow pace. Like the pacing was good, but there just wasn't like big like climax moments. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like... there was points where they're staying in one scene for quite a while and everything's mellow and stuff. But then you do get some pretty exciting stuff that happens too. But I guess I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, like I feel like at the end, like the big action set piece was out in space with the Katana fleet, right? Like that whole sequence was really, really cool. And then there was like other little moments of Han doing cool stuff, and but it was a lot of like political maneuverings, which I don't mind at all.
A lot of being sneaky.
Yeah, being sneaky and just trying to like figure things out.
Espionage.
But yeah, I think I probably didn't like it as much as the first one, but I didn't not like it by any means. Like I enjoyed the book.
Yeah.
And I think we do get some cool stuff kind of revealed. Particularly for me, I liked learning that Mara Jade was not the only Emperor's hand. She was like one of, or Thrawn alludes to the fact that she's like one of many, and that she was made to feel special by the Emperor, but actually wasn't. And so all throughout the first book, you're watching this character and you're kind of like, oh man, she was like this super important person in the Empire, and like she was like his right hand man. That's so crazy that we're getting her perspective. And then you find out in this book, it's like, actually, like the Emperor kind of had a lot of them, and it's not as big of a deal as we might think to
poor Mara
to be the Emperor. I know, poor Mara. She had such a breakdown too. She was like, wait, she just starts like questioning everything, like questioning her entire life.
Because that was like that was like her like main core of identity was being Emperor's hand. But to find out that it was all kind of a lie.
Yeah. And even like the flashes of the Emperor's voice that she would get in her head, she feels this dedication to him because she was so like elevated, and she's like, I was his buddy, like I was his like right hand man. Wow. And then to find out that that wasn't the case, I hope that helps her with the like the intrusive thoughts of like, kill Luke Skywalker. Hopefully she'll be like, screw you, dude.
Yeah,
like,
for real.
That she's just been manipulated. And used.
Yeah.
It's surreal. Probably for, I don't know, I just think of real life people to like realize that's happening in some kind of relationship or something like that.
Or it's like, oh, it wasn't what I thought it was, or like one-sided or whatever.
To go from like feeling power and like special privilege, like to like being abandoned, realizing you're being used, powerless, not special. Like, wow, that's crazy. That's
rough.
Mara's an interesting character. I wonder if in the last book she like really finds herself and then unlocks her full force abilities and like kicks someone's butt or something. I keep waiting for her to do something like super crazy, because people love her, and I can see why I like her for her story arc so far, but I was assuming that people liked her because she's like super BA or something.
Right.
Yeah.
But she is.
Yeah. Like she's cool. I definitely like her POV chapters. I like Luke's. I mean, I like them all. Like there's not really like a POV chapter that I don't like, but I think Luke and Mara is kind of like what I'm here for. And Han. I love Han. But I love both of their POVs, and I'm hoping the third book is going to have to do a lot of the weightlifting, because I feel like, most of the second book was finding the Katana fleet, and that was kind of the main objective of this book. Whether it was the rebels looking or not, Republic looking for it, or the Empire looking for it. Everybody's kind of looking for this fleet, and I feel like I didn't really understand why. I didn't really quite comprehend like why. Like I know it's like a really good fleet of ships or whatever, and it can help one side or the other. But
they were the ships were they had this like slave AI thing.
Right.
That made it so instead of needing 6,000 people to run them, it only needed 60.
Oh, and so it was like that's true. This so they can fire the other ships from one.
Yeah, they can control every ship. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's like this one. It's like a hive mind thing, from what I understand.
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah. Okay, I thought it was just a towing mechanism so that you can call the other ships to you. I didn't know it was like you can operate all of them.
Right.
That's cool. Okay, so that makes more sense then. Because I was thinking, I'm like, man, this this book spent a lot of time on the Katana fleet and those kind of maneuverings, and then the whole General Akbar or Admiral Akbar.
Yep.
That whole storyline. And I was kind of left feeling now, and I don't want to come across the wrong way. I loved this book. I had a great time with it. But at the end of it, I kind of felt like, okay, so what happens now though? Like, what's Thrawn's big thing? I was kind of waiting for this book to like push us forward in a new direction, to be like, here's the next like major storyline that we're going to be following over the next book, and this is kind of where we want to end up. But going into book 3, I'm not entirely sure what that is. I'm not sure like what the big next thing is, and I'm excited to find out. But as of right now, finishing this book, besides, were you looking at the clone troopers? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, I was just remembering that there was a mention of clones, and I was like, oh yeah, that was kind of a hook at the end.
Yeah, that was. When I got to that, I was like, oh man, that's crazy, because they mentioned that Thrawn would have to have his own like cloning chamber. They're like, he must have gotten a hold of like these cloning chambers from like way back in the day. And it just shows you how like resourceful he is and how willing he is to like, I don't know. I would imagine that at this point in the world, clone troopers are pretty frowned upon.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I thought after the Clone Wars, I can't remember, and I don't know a whole lot about Star Wars, but I thought they had been like outlawed or something, or they had been like...
Oh, right. Yeah, they like get rid of them. That's kind of the thing that they're exploring in the Bad Batch show that's out right now.
Okay.
It's like animated. Yeah, and they're exploring like getting rid of clones. I think they're saying that like if I remember one of the reasonings was like if a volunteer chooses to serve the Empire, they'll have loyalty for their entire life, as opposed to a clone that's
right,
like, has faults and stuff.
Oh, it has faults?
I guess clones? So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting plot point.
Yeah.
To put a lot of emphasis on.
Yeah. Yeah, that ending was pretty shocking. I was like, oh man, if we get like a big clone battle, like that's gonna be, I mean, he's already got them, so like the Imperial soldiers are already all clones, but I could see him getting like, I hope it leads to a big clone battle like we see in the second movie and stuff.
Cool, yeah.
So yeah, what did you think? Better than the first? About the same?
Yeah,
so?
It just kind of felt like I just pressed play and kept going from the first book. For the most part, I mean, I enjoed it. I love Star Wars. Surprise. And it was cool just continuing going on. I liked it. Did hang out in the like conversational political stuff. I liked that. But I did kind of miss some of the action. Yeah. And some of the movement there.
Yeah. One thing I'll say about that too is like I enjoy books with a lot of political maneuverings and stuff. Even something like the Kingkiller Chronicles, you know, that doesn't have a ton of action in it. It has, from like time to time, you'll get like some big like fight or something. But for the most part, it's just kind of watching a dude try to like manipulate his way into like this school, like social hierarchy type stuff. And so I like books like that. And I, as well as the big like action-y books. And I think that because this book had so many of those kind of conversations and like political maneuverings and stuff like that, when the action happened, it felt like you were on a rocket just like flying.
There were more moments in this book that were like that had me being like, oh shoot, like, oh no, that's gonna happen. Like I don't know, like example, Leia's on Honegger talking to the queen or whatever of that
that's
tribe.
One of my favorite sections of this book.
Yeah.
Would you call her a matriarch?
Matriarch, yeah. Wait, is that a reference?
we have a long running inside joke about a matriarch. But yeah, she's talking to the lady.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. I was on edge though when Thrawn was coming in, because it's like, how in the world are they gonna like get out of this.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I wonder if authors just like don't even know themselves.
Right.
And then they just write
they
up to that
way.
point, and then they have to come up with an idea.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. And then, I mean, I don't know, jumping to the end already.
Go ahead.
I also thought, the title of the book is Dark Force Rising,
Yeah.
which is also the nickname of the Katana fleet.
Right.
But I thought that the Dark Force Rising metaphorically was not only Thrawn, but also Thalia, the Bothan politician guy. I thought he was kind of like the Dark Force Rising,
or Sabaoth
in the midst, Sabaoth. He's interesting, but Thalia at the end there, when he's got all of his tightest supporters on the ship, and then he Card gets him to like confess his real motives.
Yeah,
dude, that was a moment that was like, justice.
Yeah,
I know. I know.
That
finally.
Oh my gosh, that is such a good feeling when the crew of the ship comes in and they're like, "Oh, really?" And they just like pull him and like lock him up.
Yep.
And they're like, "Yeah, we're not down with this. She's the new captain now."
Yes.
And
awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Leia's maneuverings throughout the book were really good, and she kind of reminds me, like I saw the first trilogy when I was a kid, but the ones that I am nostalgic for are the like sequel trilogy, as much as people hate them. And she reminds me kind of a lot of Padme.
Totally.
And just her kind of like maneuverings within the Senate, and she's not necessarily a character that is at the forefront of the action, but she's got so many cool moments with little discussions. One of my favorite moments with her in this book was when she's talking to the Nogri matriarch, and she there's no way I can ever say that word again without laughing. I hate what that word is. I don't hate what that word has become, but it's ruined that word for me. So anyways, when she's talking to her, and the lady is telling Leia about, there was like the sky gods were fighting, and there was this big piece of their technology that came down and crushed into the earth, and it made volcanoes erupt. It caused like this big chasm, like all of these explosions. And then it, for like however many years or whatever, there was like toxic rain that was coming down. And Leia's trying to interpret this, and she's like, wait, that would be like a ship coming down. She's talking about like a starship. And not only that, but if there's toxic rain, like it would mean
it's like nuclear, right, or something?
Like nuclear waste. And those were only in the older ships. And then she's like, the only people using older ships during the recent war were the Rebel Alliance, because that's all they could afford. And so Leia has this moment where she realizes, we did this, like this was our ship that came down. And then I think the book kind of ruined it later because it's like, oh no, it wasn't one of our ships. It was from like way back in the Clone Wars is when this came down, because the Nogri woman mentions that they've been under the thumb of the Empire for like 43 years. And Leia's like, oh, so this wasn't like 5 or 6 years ago. This was like a long time ago.
And you thought that ruined it?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, because I think it would be a really cool plot point if it was like, oh, like we did this and now we have to like make up for it. Like now we have to find a way to repay these people that we like obliterated their land by one of our ships like crashing on it, even though it's not like, what are you going to do? It's a crashing ship or whatever, but still it's like the war that they were involved in, and like this thing that they kind of not caused, but this thing that they were in, that like ruined this whole planet for the Nogri people. I'm like, man, that would be so interesting if we watched the Republic have to like come to terms with like the destruction they caused in their part of the war, as well as the destruction that the Empire caused in their part of the war. I thought that would have been a really cool plot point, but then to find out that it's from the Clone Wars and nobody really feels responsible for it. Like
a cool thing, I was kind of searching around on Wikipedia last night, just clicking on blue names and reading fun stuff. And there's a comic book series called Star Wars Republic that's still in the Legends category, so it's not canon. That came out. It's like issue 68 or 63. My brain's thinking of one of those. It's like 68 or something. Mm-hmm. And you actually have Quinlan, so 2 Jedi visiting Honegger, and it's shortly after the event that this book is written about.
Oh, like, really?
Yeah, they took one issue to just kind of reference this, and there's some Nogari in the issue, and I read the comic last night, and
sweet.
Yeah, it's cool. Nice. I think I've read through that whole series, and if you were to just jump right in and just read that comic, you'd be like, what is happening?
Oh, okay.
But it was just cool to have that nod to like the author, a handful of years later, a couple movies later, being like, hey, remember when we all read Dark Force Rising? Let's do a whole issue where we just allude to that.
That's so cool.
That poison event that happened on Honegger or whatever.
I love that so much. And I think like stuff like that is why I think I'm going to get into this extended universe stuff, because it seems like there's a lot of things that get referenced. I don't know if every author is going to play with the same canon as another author.
Totally.
Because I know there's a bunch of them that are writing in the EU, but it's cool when things like that happen. There's like a little Easter egg to that.
Did you know that there's a prequel to these two that Timothy Zahn wrote after?
It's like directly after the movies?
I think it's a prequel. Well, just after he wrote these 3 books, he wrote like a book that comes before this.
Oh, okay.
It's called Outbound Flight.
Okay. Is it in between 1 and 2, or is it before 1?
It's before 1. I think it's more of a Thrawn origin.
Oh, thing. Cool. Okay. We might want to check that out.
I know. I'm like, we get done with these 3 books and it's like, oh, now we got to do Outbound Flight.
Yeah.
And then once we get done with those, it's like, now we got to start with the canon ones.
Yeah.
It's like so much reading to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. I was thinking about that recently where I'm like, okay, well, we got one more book in the Thrawn trilogy. Like, I don't know. And then I remembered, I mean, I know this, but I just kind of remembered like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of other ones in the EU. And I'm sure there's other ones that Timothy Zahn has written in the EU. And so, yeah, I'm interested in looking at what else is there. And I'm also wondering if after the Thrawn trilogy ends, is that the last time that Luke Skywalker is in a book, or are there other books with Luke and Mara in them? Because she's such a popular character that I can't imagine Mara is only in this trilogy.
That's what I want to know.
Right?
I want to read more Mara content here, because I feel like there is more that the internet knows about that I don't.
Right.
Because they have kids, and they couldn't have kids on a whole next book.
Like, yeah, that's right.
I know that they have kids.
Right.
So that's got to be.
There's got to be more. Yeah, there's got to be more. Let's look through some of our notes real quick. Oh, do you know anything about these wraiths?
No, I thought it's cool that the word wraith is in Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's just kind of extra. It's so cool.
Yeah, Farrier was saying in chapter 2, he was saying their bodies absorb all this blank, some sort of defense mechanism. I replayed that part over and over, and I could not for the life of me tell what he said. And so I listened to it like on every volume, every speed. I tried slowing it way down. I could not tell what this word was. But he's like, yeah, their bodies absorb all of this blank, some sort of defense mechanism.
I don't know what that was.
I'm not sure. So yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. So I thought that the whole thing behind the Katana fleet was really cool. The whole Katana fiasco, as it's called, where you have these pilots flying the Katana fleet, and then the lead lead pilot that is driving the ship that has all the other ones chained to it gets hit with a virus and he goes mad. And because they're all chained together, like he zips way out into the universe and all the other ships follow him. So when he got stranded, they got stranded as well.
Right.
I'm like, that is really interesting. And despite kind of being like, oh, this book was like only about the Katana fleet, I really liked the Katana fleet. Like I liked the idea behind the Katana fleet. And it was kind of this thing where it's like, oh, it's almost like looking for like hidden treasure. Like it's kind of like this mystery, like the Katana fleet is out there somewhere and people are like looking for this treasure trove of ships and whatnot. And then you find out that Card has them. That was crazy. And yeah, I liked the whole like mystery about them. I thought that they had a certain allure.
And probably because my brain's been thinking about pirates a lot lately. I don't know, YouTube's been shooting Pirates of the Caribbean videos at me for some reason, but it reminds me of like looking for the Black Pearl, or like Davy Jones' ship is like special, like
right.
Yeah,
it just reminds me of pirates like looking for the ships that conquered Spain or whatever, and
right.
like, we can have those and we'll have the same success,
right.
That's cool, like
and
space pirate ships.
When I read Galaxy's Edge, and I'm sure that they had to have been enticed by this, I would think.
Yeah, inspired
but
by.
There's the same thing, this mysterious ship that was home to the Cybart, and same kind of mystery. One person knew where it was, but I don't know, it's just kind of cool.
Yeah, Isaac would probably like Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah,
that's a Star Wars book.
I would totally agree. No, it's not Star Wars.
Oh, okay.
It's very similar to Star Wars.
It's got like serious Star Wars vibes. Like, so each book is split into, at least on Audible, each book is split into two halves, and you have one side that is kind of like these Call of Duty Space Marines kind of guys, and you're following them.
Yeah.
And then the other half is like, they were clearly inspired by Star Wars. Like they were like, you're following literally a Han Solo character.
Yep.
You're following like a Princess Leia character, and they're all kind of, and he's got like a little what's the cat? The cat that's like the co-pilot guy that he gets, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, no.
You remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, he's not a cat. He's a.
Wasn't it? No.
Nope. It's a. I can't actually tell you exactly what he is because it'll ruin the last half of the books. But,
okay.
It's like this Indian guy who's not really a person.
No, not that one. The one that hates him, the little badger looking thing.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's like a humanoid badger,
humanoid cat
thing. Yeah, humanoid cat. Okay. Yeah. And this thing, he gets indebted to the Han Solo character, and he just like, he hates him so much.
Really?
And so their interactions are so funny.
Yeah, they're hilarious.
Because like the Han Solo character doesn't really mind him. He's just using him like as a co-pilot.
Right.
And they're like running missions together, but the cat just hates him. And it's so funny.
It's like a real cat.
Yeah, exactly.
They're good books. I think you would enjoy them quite a bit.
Yeah, you kept throwing me off because Star Wars Land at
Galaxy's
Disneyland
Edge,
is called Galaxy's Edge
at Disneyland.
I thought maybe they probably, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a book
right
like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question for Isaac. Card says that he came across 2 dreadnoughts of the fleet while running from 2 other dreadnoughts on a smuggling run. His pilot got scared and threw their ship into light speed. And then he's telling this to Mara, and Mara's like, that was a stupid decision. And he's like, I know, it was almost fatal. And they collided with what I think I heard from the audiobook was a mass shuttle of a comet on the way out. And maybe I don't understand what light speed is, but where was the day? Because he's like, we threw it into light speed and got out of there. But isn't that what happens like all the time? Is there something in this that was like that they did it in a dangerous way, or?
Yeah. So I think, I'm not sure what they had established at this point, but but I know Lightspeed isn't just how fast you're going, but they're also like highways. So
Yeah, it's like
they treat them like roads. So like you
warping. It's like space-time stuff, you know?
you could literally get into a car accident in a hyperspace. They call them hyperspace lanes.
Oh, okay.
And
Yes.
so that's why they always like before they jump, they always have to get the coordinates, or else they could, show up into a meteor field, or they could hit a planet, or they could
Okay.
do something. So maybe that's what I actually don't remember that moment in the book very clearly.
Right.
But yeah, maybe that's what it could be.
Yeah, that makes sense then, because I was like, don't they jump into like light speed all the time? Like, because like in the movies you see them just kind of like the ship is just sitting there and then it's like off.
Right.
And it's like, so does that not happen all the time? But it makes sense if there's like actual pathways that are known throughout the universe to like get you to point A to point B.
Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that at all.
It makes it a little more relatable to like actual freeways and water ports and stuff.
And it makes sense too how they're not like just like flying into things like we see Card do. Because I've always kind of wondered about that. Like, what if they like hit something? Or I think I assumed that the ship just kind of like automatically dodged
like
things if it had like
corrects itself or whatever.
Yeah.
Also, I've just found out the race, what they were talking about, they absorb light, UV light.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just typed in Wraith Thrawn, and it brought me to the Wikipedia.
Oh, cool. Okay, awesome.
Like, that's cool. Yep, the old Wikipedia.
Do you guys want to talk about Sabayoth and Luke? This was a whole like interesting arc where Sabayoth is kind of calling to Luke. Luke eventually finds him, and Sabayoth even mentions like, I'm gonna try to like bend him to my will and make him basically his apprentice is what he's looking for. What is your guys' read? I'm gonna start with Gabe. Do you have a read on like who Sabayoth is, or like do you feel like he's dark side, or is he just kind of selfish, or do you?
Yeah, I would say I feel like I think he's dark side, but I think his motives, he's dark side because of his selfishness. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
His motives are skewed, and I think it's because he's a little, crazy.
Little cuckoo. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, a little cuckoo.
Yeah.
But I thought it was funny because that's his whole thing. He wanted, in the first book, the deal he made with Thrawn or whatever was, I need these two Jedi. I'll help you. I need these two people to come so I can bend them and make them my own. Right.
Yeah.
And he calls himself a Jedi because I think he thinks that he is, like that he's not evil or whatever. But it's funny because when Luke finally shows up, he's Sabayoth's inner monologue, I'm gonna bend him, I'm gonna make him, break so he's mine. Right. And I was thinking the whole time, I'm like, dude, that's not even gonna happen.
That's not gonna happen.
There's no way. Like, you are deluded. There's no way that that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So that was kind of funny. But yeah, he's definitely an intriguing character, and I think it's, we'll just have to see what happens because who knows what's gonna happen in the third book.
Because there's some times where I'm like, he's got a point.
Yeah,
he's got a point.
Totally. Yeah.
That Sabayoth has a point.
There was a couple times where he was like telling Luke, he's like, you can't just like sit on a decision. Like, you have to make a decision, and it has to be your final decision. You can't like waver on it. He's like, you are like the
judge.
Judgment. Yeah.
He has a point.
Yeah. I'm like, Luke is kind of and I think that's kind of what Luke has been struggling with since the first book, is like, he doesn't really know. Like, he went through all this stuff with like Vader, and he like fought in the war, and like he knows how to be proficient in combat and stuff, but he doesn't know how to make judgment calls. He doesn't know how to like, oh, is this part of the Force good, and is this part of the Force bad? Like, what am I supposed to use?
He's always questioning.
Yeah. And so I think what Sabayoth is trying to do, because he can look into Luke's mind, he sees that like that kind of like indecisiveness, and he's like, you just need to act. And Sabayoth is kind of acting in like the opposite way that Luke is, where he's like going a little bit more like dark side or whatever, but Luke still needs to learn how to be like a decisive Jedi. Like when we see the other Jedis, when we see Ben Kenobi or Yoda or any of them, they're all very like snappy and decisive, and here's my judgment and this is my opinion. And then there's scenes where they're like sitting in the council chamber or whatever and like discussing things, which is also part of being a Jedi. But I think what Luke is missing is kind of that snappy like judgment calls. Yeah.
I think, yes, you're exactly going towards the direction I was thinking of. I was thinking about how I've watched, I think it's episode 3 with the live commentary on, where George Lucas and the other directors and stuff literally will make commentary over the movie while it plays.
Okay.
And George Lucas talks about how he wanted, I think that's where I heard this, but he was talking about how like these main bad guys in the first 3 episodes, 1, 2, and 3, are all kind of Anakin's like opposite, or like what they're all characteristics of things that make up who Darth Vader is. So like you get Darth Maul, who is like the revenge, who is like the anger and the hatred, and like the evil like ness. And then you get Count Dooku, who's like the good guy turned bad, who's like this leader, and then
he's very like intelligent and like well spoken.
Right. And then you get the last one with General Grievous, and he's the cyborg. He's the robot. And Anakin becomes like the epitome of all 3 of those things.
Right.
And I think it's interesting that when like a good main character faces like his nemesis, or a good nemesis, the good nemesis is like the temptation of that main character or whatever. And so Sabaoth is like, you're totally getting right to it, probably better than I think my brain was connecting the dots. But Sabaoth is like a super weird character. He's totally crazy, but the reason he makes sense is because he's like this guy that has just been like, my role is to like have power, and the way that I have power is I just make people do things like based off of my judgment.
Right.
And now Luke is right. He's in this place of trying to figure out, am I a judge? Is that my role? Is that like what I do? And how do I do that? You know, he met in that cantina scene or whatever, he makes the Rodian and the other guy do a compromise or whatever. And then I just thought that was interesting. I don't know. I feel like that's probably not much different than some real life jobs, like a real judge or police officers and stuff like that.
Right. And I kind of wonder if his time with Sabaoth is going to, because he's trying to figure out what kind of Jedi he wants to be, or like what type of Jedi he should be. And I wonder, you know, because his whole thing is like, now that Ben is gone and like Yoda's gone, he doesn't really have anyone to teach him the rest of being a Jedi.
Right.
And so I wonder if his time with Sabaoth will be this thing where he's like, okay, I know what kind of Jedi I want to be, and it's not this.
Right.
And so he just like goes the opposite way from that, or like takes some of the things that Sabaoth taught him and kind of leaves the rest. And so,
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was done.
Okay. I was going to say, I think that, and this is exactly what you're saying. I just thought of a different way to say it, but I think I think Luke just struggles to interpret the Force without the knowledge of Ben or somebody else.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause there has been times where he's like trying to get a read on things. And he's like, I just don't know like what to do with this. Like, I don't know if this power that I have in the Force is good or bad. Like, I don't know if like manipulating someone's mind, like, is that okay to do as a Jedi, or is that not okay to do? Is it only for like certain circumstances? And he doesn't know how to, like you said, interpret what parts of the Force are good and what parts are bad. It seems like.
That's interesting. I think an interesting parallel too to I think one of the cool things about Star Wars is it has so many parallels to real life, and it's like just a fun way to explore real life things because it's like fantasy and silly and fun, and but it reminds me of like a soldier. Like, so if original Star Wars was based and inspired by World War II and Germans and stuff, maybe like another thing going through Luke's mind is kind of like the end of World War II, how a soldier would be coming home and he's like, I just learned
how
all
to kill
this
people,
combat and killing people and discipline, and like I just learned a whole new lifestyle, and now here I am back in the world trying to learn how to be a soldier as a civilian. And Luke is literally like, how do I be? He's no longer working for the Republic technically anymore. Like it starts this book calling him a civilian, and he's like, yeah, now he's a Jedi that's trying to figure things out. That's interesting.
Right. Yeah. It's gotta be tough knowing that you are the last one left and that there is nobody really to teach you. And I think that's kind of why he was hoping so much for everything to work out with Sabayoth, because he's like, I don't have anybody else. Like, this is all I got. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting dynamic. What did you guys think of the ending where Sabayoth was like, he like tells off Thrawn, and he's like, doesn't he say something like, I'm going to create my own empire or something?
I think he says he says like, come, let us plan for our empire or something. It's like how that section ends or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like the clone thing directly followed that. And so I didn't know if that was implying that the clones are Sabayoths or if I assume they're Thrawns, but it was just weird how it like directly followed that. I thought that was supposed to be like kind of a reveal that he had this whole thing going. One thing I thought was interesting was to think of like Anakin or Vader coming to help the Nogri people, like even though he has his own like selfish motives and ambition and stuff. It specifically mentions that he like came to their land and like took part in their customs and like met with them and like shook hands with them and like treated them kindly. And so it's funny to think of like, I don't know, you think of Vader and you just think of like this hard boiled, like he's going to go down there and threaten them. But no, he like went down there with democracy and offered them help for the things that had, for whatever happened, for like the ship crashing. He's like, we'll help you with your fields. We're going to do this. He's like, just, help us out with some warriors or whatever. And we'll, we'll come to your aid. And then he even goes the extra mile where he's like, getting them food. He's training them in languages and other things culturally to benefit the empire, but he's still training them on this. And then he's like, it also mentions that he like, because the colonies are so far apart, he like had his ships like ferry them to each other. And so he's like also giving them transportation. I'm like, man, that is so, I just never think of Vader doing any like diplomatic missions like that. I think of him just like kicking ass and taking names. I don't really is so interesting to think of him being, I don't know, not the good guy necessarily, but just like being kind to these people. Like they're not very trusting of people, and he did something to make them trust him and like basically worship him. So he must have been very charismatic.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, it's interesting that like from the context of all the things that we know of Darth Vader at this time is we know that he used to be a Jedi and that he was friends with Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then we also know that he chooses to be good at the end right before he dies. So it is crazy to have Vader. Yeah. Like right before he dies, he decides, all right, I'm going to overthrow the Emperor. And he tells Luke, you were right. And then he plays harmonica. But
so is that a reference to his little machine that
like the little face part? Yeah. I don't remember if someone told me that, or I always thought
that's hilarious.
It reminded me of Bob Dylan's harmonica.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting to think because like those are the only things we know about him actually like having a kind part about him or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that extended content about Darth Vader talks about how he was like manipulated by the Emperor, and we see that in episodes 1, 2, and 3 about him being manipulated by Palpatine. And at the end of the day, like he wanted justice and he wanted like peace, but the way that he sought those things was through force and through power. Which, so at the end of the day, his desire was ultimately good, but his means was like
way off.
At the cost of life and other things.
Vader is an interesting character, especially because, you know, if you watch the first trilogy, it's easy to look at him and be like, oh, he's just your basic bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's just space villain. And then when you learn more about him in like the prequel movies and whatnot, it's like, oh wow, there's actually a lot more depth here than I thought there was. And so this is an interesting plot point. So Mara, she gets taken in by the Chimera, and then she offers to hand over the fleet for Card's freedom. And then there's like the whole, we talked about this earlier, like the Emperor wouldn't have lied to me, would he? Like starting to doubt, like learning that she wasn't the only hand or whatever. And then she is double crossed by Thrawn, and he shows up and he takes Card, and he basically like has him in his like holding cell or torture cell or whatever, and tells Mara to go find the fleet. But instead she goes and finds Luke, and she like threatens Master Sabayoth, and she's like, she knocks him out and almost kills him, but Luke stops her. And then Luke is just like, yeah, I'm pretty much done here. Let's go save Card.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I love this is probably my favorite part of the book, was just this whole sequence of events with Luke and Mara. And Gabe, it reminds me so much of Kyler and Viridiana from Night Angel. Like, it's so similar, where like Kyler is kind of like, I mean, he's not a good guy in the way that Luke is a good guy, but he's like, in the story, he's like a good guy, like very morally gray good guy. But then you have Viridiana, who is not a good guy, like at all. Like she's more like Mara Jade. And she like hates Kyler at first. And then over time they like kind of develop what Luke and Mara are doing similar. And so, that reminded me a lot of them. But I think that's why I liked this part of the book, was because it was so much fun watching Mara and Luke go through this ship, and he's like taking his lightsaber and like opening holes. And she like points to an area. She's like, oh yeah, you should be able to cut through this just fine. And he does it, and all the lights go out. And it's just like, oh my God. And then she, while he's doing stuff like that, she's able to like go to the computers and do her like hacking stuff and like open doors and whatnot. And then, you know, when Luke gets Card, they're like trying to make their way out, and he's like opening doors, or she's opening doors for them. And Card is like, is that Mara? And Luke's like, yeah. And then like Luke learns that Card does not think that Mara gave him up. He's like, I know that she's like, she didn't like turn me over to the Empire or whatever. And then he asks Luke, I think it was, do you know why Thrawn has me in here, or why he got captured? And Luke says, I thought it was for not giving me over to the Empire when I was on like your island or whatever. And Card says, let's just say if we get out of here, the Republic has much to gain. And this was this moment where I'm like, oh, he's gonna give the fleet to the Republic. That's so cool. Where it's like Card is so like indebted to Luke for getting him out of here. He's like, I'm just gonna give, like, you guys are obviously the good guys. He's like, I'm just gonna give you the fleet. Like, you guys should have the fleet. And so I thought that was a cool moment where it's like almost like a very quick character arc for Card, where he's like working with the Empire, but he sees the Republic and he gets to know Luke, and he like sees what the Empire is doing and the way they're treating him. And he's like, I'm just going to deal with the Republic. He's like, I'm way better over there.
Right.
And so I just
picked a side.
Yeah, finally picked a side. So yeah, that was just like a cool moment that I was kind of like, yes, let's go.
Yeah. And it's cool to like, I forgot that was another one of those things with Mara was like, oh man, she's outed everybody. She's by herself. Like the Empire doesn't like her.
Yeah.
Or know about her for the most part. And then and now she's betrayed Card. It's like it was fairly satisfying for him to be like, I know Mara's, she's still on my side, and have everybody happy again. We're a big family.
One big happy family.
They can all go camping together.
Yeah. They'll all go camping. Leia shows Leia. Leia shows the Nogri people how the Empire is poisoning their land. She like proves it to them like in this big thing where they're about to like take her into the Empire, and she like flips it around. She's able to show them like what the Empire is doing to them. And so yeah, I liked that scene a lot. It was just that was kind of like her big scene.
Yeah, that whole sequence when she's on that planet, I think is really cool.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Lady Vader.
Malariush.
Yeah, Malariush. Yeah,
that's cool. There's a lot. It was really cool seeing. Although, yeah, their voices were hard to listen to for a long time. I did like how much culture and stuff we just learned about the Nogri. Like we learned about their history and their motives and customs and culture and their oppression and how this is kind of a part of a redemption for the whole people group,
right?
Which is cool, and that's what Leia wants for the New Republic, is to like help take care of the small people that got obliterated by the Empire.
Right. So let's kind of, as we wrap up here, let's talk about that kind of final just that whole final sequence with Luke and Han going to find the Katana fleet. And then like the Imperial Star Destroyer comes in, and then there's Phalia and Leia in another ship, and he's like trying to arrest them, but then this destroyer comes in. Yeah, and I'm just like, man, that scene was so tense, where it's like you on one side you have this big ship that's gonna kill everybody, and then you have Phalia who's like trying to arrest our heroes, and you're like, no, stop, like just stop, dude. And yeah, I don't know. So Phalia, he was found out. He's the informant, right? Like he's the one working for the Empire.
I don't think so.
No,
yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it like specifically said that or not, because at the end he was like holding a gun to Leia, and I thought that was the moment where it was like, bah, I'm revealed to be the bad guy, like the bad guy. Like I don't know.
I think that it just showed his true motive is just political power,
right?
And
like,
he didn't really care whose side
control.
He was on.
Make sure he came out on top no matter what.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, he tries to leave them, and then we talked about it earlier where Leia like puts on the intercom, and like the rest of the crew. Oh, or yeah. Well, Card tells her he's like hands her a tablet. He's like, turn on the intercom. And the crew like hears it, and they're like, yeah, we're done with this guy.
Yeah, that was like, dude, so awesome, man. Like
so
when they
satisfying.
were like, you know, when I can't remember what they said, but yeah, super satisfying, because you're like, dude, yes, I'm so glad he got what was coming to him, man. It's about time.
Yeah. I liked that moment, and I liked you know, she kind of like takes command. I can't really remember, because I was so focused on like Luke and Han and Mara and what they were doing. I can't remember exactly what Leia does for the rest of the fight. I don't know if you guys remember, but
I don't know.
Okay.
But was Bel Iblis?
Yeah.
Was he there at the fight? He was there at the fight, right?
He shows up at the last second, like they're about to get destroyed, and then all of a sudden, shoo, and it's just like it's Bel Iblis and his crew. And that was something that I was kind of confused on. I was like, is he a mercenary, or is he, because he wasn't on the Republic side, but he wasn't on the Empire, or he was against the Empire, but he wasn't like, he wasn't part of like a team.
Like he used to be a part of the Rebel Alliance.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then he had like a falling out because people were all like into Mon Mothma, his leader.
Right.
But it's interesting in the book, like it literally talks about how his stuff reminded them of their own rebel bases before they found out he used to be a part of the rebels. And yeah, and it's interesting that he's like kind of self outcasted himself, and how he like does want to come back, but he doesn't want to come back because he's like kind of prideful.
Yeah, for sure. I just wonder, like, what does he do out there? Because he's got his own like compound with like people that are there and like working for him and stuff, or working with him or whatever. And I'm like, so what do they do?
Right. I mean, maybe they were. I'm just thinking of like in new Star Wars stuff. There's Saw Gerrera. Have you heard of him?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like got his own rebel unit, and maybe they were doing like their own rebel activities against the Empire.
Right.
But then he also talks about how he saw warning signs of Mon Mothma just wanting to become the leader, the new emperor kind of thing, and he was like, we need to be ready to like take her out if she doesn't. So that was like another reason why he wanted to be isolated, was so that she wouldn't have access to like his resources or whatever, so they could be like, get out of here, Mon.
Right.
Or, taking over.
Do you think Mon Mothma is a problem?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, it's just his interpretation.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I never got any vibe that Mon Mothma was like particularly like bad or anything.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's interesting that, but like as Han Solo is talking to Bel Iblis, who, it's funny that Han is like this tough guy, but when he's around this Bel Iblis guy, he's just like a little kid talking to his hero or whatever. And and then he like his brain starts thinking, oh, he's right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like Mon Mothma usually.
Yeah.
Like,
that was interesting to watch Han just go all doe-eyed over this general.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's like kind of out of, and even Lando's like, all right, bro. Like,
I think if Lando wasn't with Han, dude, he would Han wouldn't have gotten anything done in this book.
No,
Lando, I feel like
Lando kept pushing him forward time and time again.
Yeah.
I like that team. I like Lando and Han. At the end, we only have 15 out of 200 Katana ships left. And when it said that, I was just like, oh my gosh, like these like extremely like historic ships, like these like treasures are just got destroyed. Like, oh man, it blows.
Well, I think the Empire took a bunch, right?
Did they take them?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, I thought they blew them up.
Because Card, like, I don't know, it wasn't very clear, but what had happened was that Card's, the way that Card had discovered the Katana fleet was when he was all part of a crew. And there was another guy that was a part of that crew that also knew, and I think he told the Empire. But I'm wondering if I just Wikipedia'd that. Maybe it wasn't in the book.
No, I feel like they did say in the book that ships were taken.
They were taken,
or some of them.
Okay.
Well, they were saying that that they got there and the Empire had already been at work taking them.
Yes.
Maybe they didn't say. Maybe they didn't say how yet or why. I don't know.
Yeah.
At this battle or before?
At this battle.
Okay.
Like right when the battle starts, they're like already there.
Oh,
I definitely think that some of them got destroyed though, for sure.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully they can get them back.
I need to clarify that.
Yeah.
So then we kind of get the end where, they're there's a cool scene where Luke and Han are getting shot at by Imperial soldiers in the anteroom of the ship. I don't know what that means, but that's what they called it. And Han is like back by the blast doors, and he's like, we gotta go, Luke. And Luke's like, hey God. He like throws his lightsaber into the wall, and it like sucks all the air out into space. And Luke jumps back behind the blast door, and like it closes in. I'm like, man, that is such a cool moment. And then somewhere at the end of the book here, I don't know if you guys remember this, but I was looking at my notes because apparently I took 2 notes from the first time I read this book.
Nice.
I must have been planning to do a reread and write more, but one of the notes was, Luke caught Mara with the Force. That was super cool.
Oh yeah.
And I don't remember when that is, but I remember thinking that it was awesome.
Was she gonna fly out the door?
Oh, and he like grabs her. Was that here?
I don't know.
I don't know when it was,
I
but
remember him catching her, but I don't remember when.
I'm like, that's super cool that he just like caught her with the Force and whatever, in whatever situation it was. I can't remember, but I remember enjoying it.
Well, because Luke senses that she's in like bad trouble, right, from the Force.
Yeah, that happens. That happens later. It happens after this thing with him opening the wall.
Yeah,
but Mara does get shot down.
Yeah,
and he like feels it, and even Han is like, Han. I think it's Han that's like, he looks like his best friend just died, or he looks like his puppy died or something. And so you're starting to get this vibe, this vibe with Luke and Mara. And I'm like, I know that they end up getting married and like having kids and stuff. And so I'm like, does that happen in the third book? Like it,
right?
Like they don't seem like, maybe now they could date in like the third book or whatever. But
is there any time jump till the next book?
There might be. Yeah.
It feels like there needs to be, or the next book just needs to move quick or something.
Yeah. I'm hoping that the third book is a little bit longer too. I know that sounds crazy to say, but I hope that it's like, because this is like a 13 or 14-hour audiobook, I think.
It was like almost barely 7 hours at the two
for
times.
You on double speed. Yeah. And so I would appreciate probably like a 23-hour audiobook. I think that'd be a good length for the end of the trilogy.
Yeah.
And just get like a lot of stuff.
How long did you want it to be?
Like 23 hours.
It's 15.
15:47. Okay, so it's the same length.
It's like 16.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. So I'm hoping the third book has a lot of stuff in it, because I want to see them get together. I want to see them like end up together. So
totally,
we'll see what happens. But they call in all the other Katana fleet with the one like main slave ship. And then I guess they blast. Did they blast the Star Destroyer? I thought he was like slingshotting them into it, but maybe they're just like blasting it apart, because it says, I listened to the part a couple times. He's like, I called in the slave ships and then we took out the Star Destroyer. And it doesn't really say how. So I didn't know if they like all fired at it, or if he just threw all of the other slave ships into it and blew it up.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
I feel like they probably would or should have just fired at it instead of wasting all the ships.
Yeah, right. and I made this note before I knew that you could like actual like fire from all of them.
Yeah.
So that's probably what they did. But at the time, I thought it was kind of cool, because it was like this last ditch effort.
Yep.
Where he had to like
no other choice.
everything he had into the ship. I'm like, that's crazy. But yeah, it's probably smarter just to fire at it. Yeah. So that's pretty much where we end off. I can't remember. I think they get Mara and they bring her back into like the ship, I think, from what I remember.
Yeah.
But that was also a sad moment where Mara is like, she gets shot down, she's floating out in space, and she's like, I'm completely screwed, because Luke, he was in this position and he had people who wanted to come find him and like cared about him and like would have gone looking for him. She's like, I don't have anybody.
Right.
And it was just this moment where it's like, oh my God. And like Card probably would have gone looking for her, because I think Card cares more about her than like she thinks he does.
Card's a weird bad guy. He's not like a bad guy. He's like a weird mob boss. Like,
right.
Yeah.
They were comparing him to Jabba the Hutt in the first book.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, maybe a guy gets powerful and cares about people.
Yeah.
In the underworld, I guess.
Yeah, I like him a lot, because in the first book, I didn't really know how to feel about him, other than he was kind of like this suave, like mobster guy. But then in this book, I'm like, I'm on board for Card. Like I like his character a lot. So, yeah, Yeah, I think he'll get even more fleshed out in the third book. He got really fleshed out in this book. Like we learn a lot about him. And so yeah, I'm liking his character arc so far.
Yeah, he seems sentimental, you know. He cares about Mara. He like apparently has a value system because he chooses to side with the Republic.
Yeah.
And you know, he misses his home in the very beginning. He's like, I don't want to leave yet.
Right.
And
oh
Mara's
yeah.
like, we have to leave, son. You know, he's like, but mom. That's what it reminded me of, like a kid trying to.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, was that a scene that I missed?
No, it just reminds me of like a kid not wanting to leave the park or something. Like,
right.
It's like, no,
yeah, I like that a lot. I think that was one of my first notes, was that you know, Card feels melancholy about seeing the place abandoned, and he's just like watching the Empire like ransack his base, and it's a place that's like been home to him for a long time. And so yeah, that was kind of cool too, to see that it's not just like a building to him, like that's where he was like living. That was kind of his home. So that was kind of cool. And then yeah, that's pretty much it. We talked about the clones, we talked about Sabaoth telling off Thrawn. So as we kind of wrap up here in the last couple minutes, do you guys have any final thoughts or anything? And I know we've talked about this a little bit, but is there anything that you're like, I need to see this thing resolved in the third book, or like, this is what I want to see happen?
I think the thing I'm probably interested the most in is Sabaoth.
Yes.
You know, of course we can speculate, but yeah, I don't know what, you know, when he said, let's go make our empire or whatever.
Yeah. What does that mean?
What does that mean? Like what, like in his head, what is he envisioning? That's what I really want to find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like telling that to Thrawn, who's gonna be like,
exactly,
no.
like his number one enemy now, dude. Like, so he's got to have some idea of something, you know, an ace up his sleeve or something.
Right.
So we'll just have to wait and see what that is.
Yeah, I wonder if he's going to end up being much more powerful than we think he is.
Yeah.
And like Luke is going to have to, like Luke is trying to save him, but he's going to have to go toe to toe with him, and he's going to have to take him out. And it's going to be a really tough fight. I think that would be pretty cool. It's pretty standard for Star Wars, but it's still, it's a good plot point for a reason.
I'd love to see him like have to fight Thrawn.
Oh yeah, dude,
that'd be awesome.
Just like, that's it, we're fighting each other. Like,
that would be
like,
cool.
That's another thing, is how is that going to end with Thrawn? Like
Thrawn's like sick of this guy.
Yeah. Like,
and Thrawn's the guy with the Islamari, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. And so there's a whole nother key factor in a battle that they would have, you know? You would have to fight him without the Force.
Right. Ooh.
Right.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Or maybe Thrawn gets a taste of like his own medicine of like Sabaoth actually, like Thrawn trying to deal with Sabaoth is like flying too close to the sun. Right. He gets burned. Like maybe Thrawn gets knocked down and he's like, he has to bounce back somehow.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know. Yeah. Like, I don't know the end of this book or this series. So who knows? Like, is Thrawn still alive? Like, he could die. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if he's in like future EU books or anything. So
I bet it's really likely that he could just be
get away.
Yeah.
Or you think it's more likely that he'll die?
I think it's really likely that he could die or get locked up or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'd like to see that. And then I think I'd like to see, I know this is like not the point of this book at all, but I just want Han and Leia to like have some time to chill and like the kids to be born and like
absolutely
go like take your, what do they call it? Maternity leave or whatever.
Paternity leave.
Like, that's killing me. They every time they see each other, they're just like, hey, I almost died. Hey, I almost died. Okay.
And then it's like they have like 5 minutes. They're like, all right, on to the next mission. Gotta go.
Yeah. And Han even mentions to Luke, he's like, we were apart for a month and I got to see her for 5 minutes. It's so tough.
Yeah.
Couldn't imagine, man.
Yeah. I bet we'll see her kids or their kids in the next book.
Hopefully.
I think we'll see them born. And then I just want to see, I don't know. I'm like interested in everything. Like I really want to see how Mara and Luke get together, just because that's something that I've heard about for so long. Like so many fans like tell me, like, or have said on YouTube videos and stuff, like, oh yeah, they had this great thing going with Luke and Mara, and then Disney screwed it up.
Right.
I'm like, oh, I want to see what that thing is, because I think they have chemistry. Like I like their back and forth, and kind of like half adversarial relationship kind of thing. So I'm really enjoying that, and I want to see that kind of happen.
Did the Nogri, does Thrawn know about the Nogri like changing alliances yet? Because that's also something that I want to just see, the like Nogri show up and start taking out stormtroopers, like
right.
And Thrawn be like, "Are you kidding me?"
What happened?
Oh yeah, that'd be cool. And especially because like I don't think Thrawn values them in the same way that Vader does, because Vader went through all that trouble because he knows that the Nogri are an especially talented group of, some alien race. And so I think Thrawn is like underestimating them by a lot. And in the third book, we'll see them, kick some butt.
Rise up.
Other than that, I'm trying to think of what other characters. We talked about Han and Leia, Luke and Mara.
Oh, that the cigar guy.
The tobacco smoke guy.
What in a galaxy far, far away, what are the chances that they would run into him like
again
and again and then
I know.
Like again? What did they run into him like 3 times at least?
Yeah.
What was that guy's name? His name was Niles Ferrier.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he's a funny, interesting character.
I
like him, but it like breaks a little bit of reality to me in the fact that he just keeps running into
how do we keep finding this guy? All right, well, cool. I'm super excited to see the end of this trilogy. It'll kind of be like bittersweet because it'll be sad that it's over, but I'm excited to see how it all wraps up. And we'll have to investigate some more EU books and kind of figure out what else is out there and what other oones are good, because these are a ton of fun. Like I'm having way more fun with these books than I ever thought that I would. And so I'm having a blast hanging out with Luke and Mara and Han Solo and all of them. So thank you guys for hanging out and chatting today. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for the invitation. This is so fun.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap us up there. We're super excited for the next book, so keep an eye out for that over the next couple months. Again, if you'd like to reach out to us, all of our socials are linked down in the description, or you can just comment on the video. I try to reply to all the comments we get, and we always love hearing from you guys, like you saw at the beginning of this episode. The episode that is getting posted next will be our Potter Watch episode 1, where we talk about the Sorcerer's Stone, or as it's known in the UK, the Philosopher's Stone. That was a really bad British accent. I don't know what that was. And we'll be discussing both the book and the movie, so keep an eye out for that. But with all that, we are going to get out of here. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time in the cantina. We'll see you in the cantina, where Han will shoot first.
Nice.